Every October, before the sun comes up, 60 people walk into a poisoned field. They walk past a county sign that says nothing you can eat is allowed to grow there. They go out in the dark, in the cold, carrying plastic buckets, and then they get down on their knees and pick flowers, by hand, one at a time. For 6 hours, the man who owns that field paid $1,400 for it. 90 acres. That is $15 an acre. 15. Because nobody else on this earth wanted it. And 1 ounce of what those 60 people carry out of that field is worth more than 4 acres of it cost him. So what are they picking? That is the whole question. And I promise you, the answer is not what you are thinking. His name is Emmett Boyd. He is not a farmer. He has never been a farmer. He made furniture for 26 years. Then the plant closed. And the reason this worked, the real reason, is going to bother some of you. It worked because he did not know anything about farming. He asked one question in the spring of 2018. It was a stupid question. Any real farmer would have laughed at him. Nobody laughed, because nobody had ever thought to ask it. Let me tell you about Emmett first, because you need to understand how far down he was. He was 52 years old. He was not married. He had never been married. He had spent 26 years at a furniture plant, 40 minutes from his house. He started on the sanding line at 26. He finished as a shift lead. Same parking lot, same lunch table, same 4 guys, 26 years. In March of 2016, the company announced it was moving the work overseas. 210 jobs, gone. They handed him $19,000 and a folder about how to write a resume. Now think about that for a second. He is 52. He lives in a county with nothing in it. And everything he knows how to do is how to run a furniture plant that does not exist anymore. He looked for work for 19 months. 19 months. And then one winter night, he did what people do when they have run out of ideas. He started scrolling through the county property listings, not to buy anything, just to look at something other than his own kitchen. That is how he found 90 acres for $1,400. Now, land does not cost $1,400. Not 90 acres of it. Not anywhere. So here is why it did. That ridge was apple country, going back more than 100 years. There was an orchard up there called Cold Spring, planted in 1908. 90 acres of apples and pears. And for 46 years it was the best run outfit on that whole ridge. And that is exactly why the ground is ruined. Back then, every serious orchard in America sprayed the same thing on its trees. It killed the worm that gets into your apple. Nothing else worked. So they sprayed it, 8 or 10 times a year, for 50 years straight. The problem is what was in it: arsenic and heavy metal. And here is the thing about those. They are not chemicals that break down. They are elements. They do not rot. They do not wash away. They do not turn into something else. 100 years later, they are still sitting in the top 8 inches of that dirt, exactly where they landed. Nobody was being evil. The men doing the spraying were following what the university told them to do. They had no idea. The orchard came out in 1954. The land went to corn, then hay, then nothing at all. In 1997, a builder wanted to put houses up there. He tested the soil, the way you have to before you build. He was gone inside a month. That is when the county drove a steel post into the ground and bolted a sign to it. And then that land sat there for 21 years. 21 years, on the tax roll, owned by a family in Chicago who had inherited it and could not get rid of it, because poisoned land is not something you own. It is something that owns you. It has a tax bill, and it never sells. They had been trying to give it away for 9 years. Emmett Boyd bought it in April of 2018 for $1,400. That was the back taxes and the paperwork. That was the whole price. And I want to be straight with you here, because every version of this story you will ever hear makes him out to be some kind of genius. He was not. He had no plan. He had 19 months of no work behind him, a bank account going down every single month, and he bought 90 acres because doing something felt better than doing nothing. The town knew inside a week. There was a man on that ridge named Hollis Renner. 400 acres of the best apple ground up there. His family had farmed it since 1911, and what he said got repeated at the feed store counter for the next 2 years. He said, Emmett bought the poison patch. Guy spent 26 years making chairs, and now he is a farmer. Emmett heard about it the way you always hear about it. Second-hand, from somebody who thought he would think it was funny. He drove up there that night and walked the whole 90 acres in the dark. That summer he paid $480. He did not have to get the soil properly tested. He wanted to know what he actually owned. The report came back bad. Arsenic and metal all across the property, worst in the old spray rows. Not a disaster site, not something the government was going to come clean up. Just ground with a permanent number on it, high enough that no food was going in and no house was going up, ever. He took that report to the county extension office. A woman there was very kind to him, and she gave him the honest answer. There was nothing to be done. To clean 90 acres, you dig up the topsoil and haul it away and truck new soil in. That is a number with 6 figures in it. No bank would lend on it. Nobody would buy it. She said he could grow hay, maybe Christmas trees. Emmett drove home with that folder on the seat next to him, and for the first time since the plant closed, he had no next thing at all. Now, before I tell you what he asked that spring, do me one favor. Hit subscribe. I put a new story up every single day, and this is the exact moment it turns. Because the question he asked is going to sound obvious once you hear it, and I want you to notice that not one person in that entire county ever asked it. Here is what a farmer knows. A farmer knows what you grow: corn, beans, wheat, hay, apples. It is not a mystery, it is a list. You look at your ground, you look at your market, and you pick something off the list. Every farmer who ever looked at that 90 acres ran it against that list, got a no on every single line, and walked away. Emmett Boyd did not have the list. He had never farmed anything in his life, so he could not rule anything out, because he did not know what was on the list to begin with. What he did have was 26 years in a factory, and a factory teaches you exactly one useful habit. When something fails, you do not ask why it failed, you ask which step it failed at. So he sat at his kitchen table with that soil report. And instead of asking, what can I grow here, he asked something else. He asked, how does this poison actually get into a person? And it turns out that is a completely different question, because it has an answer. The poison sits in the dirt. It gets into you one of 2 ways. Either you eat the dirt itself, which sounds crazy until you picture a carrot, or a potato, or a head of lettuce with grit down in the leaves, or the plant pulls the poison up out of the ground and puts it into the part you eat. Root vegetables are the worst, leafy greens next, then everything else. And Emmett Boyd sat there and realized the question was never, what will grow here? The question was this: what can I grow where the part I sell never touches the dirt? Now, if you are a farmer, that is a ridiculous question, because almost everything valuable in American farming is a seed, a grain, a fruit, or a root, and none of them pay enough per acre to turn 90 ruined acres into a living. But Emmett did not know that, so he spent 4 months at the library. He worked down a list of the most valuable crops on earth by weight, and he checked every single one against 3 things. The part you sell can never touch the ground, it cannot soak up metal, and it has to be worth enough, by the ounce that 90 acres actually means something. The list got short fast, and at the very bottom of it was a flower. Saffron. Saffron is not a plant, it is a part of one. It is 3 tiny red threads that grow inside a purple flower about the size of a shot glass. 3 threads. That is all you get. You pull them out with your fingers. It takes around 75,000 flowers to make 1 pound of it. That is why it costs what it costs. It is not that the land is rare, it is that the hands are. And when Emmett read how you actually grow the thing, he found 4 facts. And every single one of those 4 facts was a reason his ground was worthless. Saffron wants poor soil. Rich dirt makes it grow leaves instead of flowers, and it rots the bulbs. It wants hard, fast drainage, the kind that would kill a corn crop in a dry July. Wet feet is the one thing that will absolutely destroy it. It sleeps underground all summer, doing nothing, exactly when every other crop is fighting for water. And the red threads grow inside a flower, 4 inches up in the air. They never touch the ground, not while growing, not while picking, not ever. Now go back and read the death sentence on that land one more time. Thin, dry, sandy, sharp draining, baked by the sun, poisoned dirt on top of a ridge. Every single reason that ground was worthless was a reason it was perfect. He had it checked before he sold 1 ounce of it. I want to be clear about that, because it matters. He grew a test patch. He sent it to a real lab. He paid for it himself. The threads came back clean. He has paid for that test every year since, on every single harvest, and he publishes the results. That is not a small detail. That is why he still has a business today. If that just landed on you, the way it landed on him, tell me in the comments. Has knowing less about something ever turned out to be your advantage? I read every one of these. Some of them turn into the next story on this channel. Because Emmett now had a plan, and a brand new problem. Saffron does not care about your plan. The bulbs cost money. He bought 11,000 of them in July of 2018, with almost the last of his severance. Then he planted just under 1 acre, by hand, on his knees, over 9 days, because he could not afford equipment, and would not have known how to run it. And then he waited a year. Here is the thing about saffron. It blooms in October, and it blooms all at once, not over a month, over about 2 weeks. Each flower opens at dawn, and it is finished by afternoon. If you do not pick it that morning, that flower is gone, and so is everything it would have given you. His first bloom came the 3rd week of October, 2018. He got up at 4:30. He walked out onto ground that had been called poison for 21 years, and there were purple flowers all the way across it in the dark. He picked for 6 hours. He ended up with about 4 ounces of wet thread, which dried down to less than 1 ounce. 1 ounce. From 9 days of planting on his knees, a year of waiting, and every dollar he had. And that night, he stood in his kitchen, looking at a paper towel with a little pile of red thread on it, and 2 things hit him at the same time. The first one was wonderful. It worked. The ground grew it. Everything he had read was true. The second one nearly ended him. Because if 1 acre took him 6 hours a morning for 2 weeks, then 90 acres was not a big job. It was an impossible one. There was not enough of him. And there is no machine. I want to make sure you understand that. There has never been a machine. Not anywhere. Not in 4,000 years. Every strand of saffron that any human being has ever eaten was pulled out of a flower by somebody's fingers. He needed hands. Hundreds of hours of them, crammed into 14 mornings, in a town where he had been the joke for 2 years. Emmett Boyd had lived alone his entire adult life. He had not asked anybody for anything since 1991. Now he had to go ask. He put a note up on the board at the diner in September of 2019. Handwritten. $14 an hour. 5:30 to 11 in the morning. 2 weeks in October. No experience needed. Coffee provided. 9 people came that first morning. 4 of them had worked at the furniture plant. By the end of that season, it was 30 people. By 2021, it was over 60. And it had turned into a thing that town just does. Retired folks, high school kids, second shift workers who come pick before they go to work. One whole family that drives in from 2 counties over. Because the grandmother picked saffron as a girl and had not seen a field of it in 50 years. She is the one who taught everybody the pinch. There is a specific way to take those threads without bruising them. She knew it. Nobody else in Michigan did. By 2022, Emmett had 31 acres in production. And in the spring of 2023, Hollis Renner planted 4 acres of saffron. Of course he did. He had watched a chairmaker do it for 4 years. He put it in the best ground he owned. Deep, rich, watered orchard soil. The dirt his family had been building up for 112 years. The finest land on that ridge. It failed the first winter. Most of the bulbs rotted in the ground before they ever came up. The few that lived threw leaves, and almost no flowers. He tried again the next year, on a drier corner. Did a little better. Still could not make it pay. Because here is the thing about saffron, and it is the thing this whole story is about. It does not want good land. Good land kills it. 112 years of doing everything right. Manure, cover crops, irrigation, drainage. 4 generations of careful work, and all of it had produced the single worst saffron ground in that county. Hollis Renner did nothing wrong. That is what makes this land. He had better dirt, more money, more equipment, 100 years of knowledge, and every single one of those advantages was pointed at the wrong test. If that just went through you, drop a comment that says the wrong test. I want to see how many of you felt that one. Now stay with me, because there is one more piece, and it is the reason nobody can take this from him. There have been 3 offers on that 90 acres since 2022. None of them went anywhere. Nobody can build houses on it. The soil numbers have not changed, and they will not change in anyone's lifetime, and cleaning it still costs more than the land will ever be worth. Nobody can grow food on it. Same numbers, same sign, and nobody can beat him at the one thing it does grow. The bulbs take 3 years to multiply into a real stand. The harvest runs on 60 people who show up because it is Emmett's. And the woman who teaches the pinch is 81 years old and does it for free. The poison that made that ground worthless is the exact same poison that makes it impossible to take. That sign is still standing. People ask him about it constantly. Reporters ask, buyers ask. Everybody assumes he keeps it up out of spite, some kind of trophy. He says it is neither. He says he leaves it there because it is true. That ground is poisoned. It will still be poisoned long after he is gone. The sign is not wrong about one single word of it. It is just not the whole sentence. Here is what I want you to take away from this. Nobody lied to Emmett Boyd. Nobody hid anything from him. The county was right. Hollis Renner was right. That is bad farmland. It always was. It always will be. Every person who looked at those 90 acres and said no was correct. They were all answering the same question. What can I grow here that people eat? And on that question, the poison patch scored a 0 for 21 years. Everybody agreed. They agreed so completely that the land had a nickname and a warning sign. Emmett Boyd asked a different question. He only asked it because nobody had ever taught him the right ones. And on his question, that ground was not just okay. It was better than the best land on the ridge. So go look at the thing on your place that everybody has already given up on. And before you take their word for it, find out what they tested it against. Because a no is always a no to one specific question. And almost nobody ever checks which one. So tell me down in the comments, what is the thing on your place that everybody calls ruined? I read every single one. Some of them become the next story here. And if you made it this far, you already know what to do. Subscribe. There is a new one every day. Tomorrow, a woman hauls 9,000 bushels of corn to the co-op, and they turn her away at the scale. 6 months later, they were begging to buy it back, at 3 times the price. You are going to want to be here for that one.